This week, it's a console launching time. After what feels like years of anticipation, the Xbox One has finally hit shelves around the world, so we've got all the details on what you can do with your new console. We also chat to Mike Reed from Crytek about the Swords and Sandals launch title Ryse, Son of Rome, and spend a bit of time with one of this year's biggest shooters, Call of Duty Ghosts. This is Player Attack. In the news this week, 3-day passes for PAX Australia 2014 sold out in a ridiculous 24-hour rush. Keep in mind the new venue for the show means there were more passes available, but it seems that everybody liked what they saw this year and would like some more, please. If you haven't snagged your pass, you'd better be quick. Single-day tickets are still available, so you could try grabbing 3 of those, but we're guessing they won't stick around too long, and there's no guarantees that you'll be able to get all 3. Sticking with Australia, it's time for a bit of true or false. Does the Australian Classification Board consider the remastered, polished-up version of Fable to be in the same category as Grand Theft Auto V, Mortal Kombat, and Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon? This one, I'm afraid, is true. Sort of. The HD release Fable Anniversary has also been rated R18+ in Australia, which is 2 levels higher than the original Xbox version got back in 2004, leaving many gamers more than a little bit confused. Surely it must have been a mistake, but it turns out it wasn't. Peter Molyneux's role-playing darling contains one tiny element that is enough to nudge the entire game over the precipice. Darkwood Bordello, a medieval-style brothel introduced in the PC release of Fable The Lost Chapters, contains a couple of scenes featuring sexual activity related to incentives and rewards. We're not going to go into any details here, but your assumptions are probably correct. There is some good news though. This tiny piece of in-game content would have been enough to get the game refused classification just 12 months ago, so while it is a confusing adults-only title, at least it's being released. And sticking with classifications, while the Aussies haven't gotten their hands on the new South Park game yet, the American ESRB certainly has. In giving the game a mature rating, recommended for gamers 17 years and older, the ratings board has also shed some light on the sort of animated filth we can expect from Obsidian. According to the report, the game is packed with in-game nudity, violence, drug use, offensive language, and sexual material, all wrapped in a blanket of mature humour. Put simply, if you're not a fan of South Park the show, you will not be a fan of South Park the Stick of Truth. But if you love the show, it sounds like you're in for a treat. And onto something completely different, here are some impressive numbers. Sony sold more than 1 million PlayStation 4 consoles in the 24 hours following its North American launch. In comparison, it took the company 3 months to ship the same number of PlayStation 3 consoles to the same region 7 years ago. Call of Duty Ghosts also sold ridiculously well, as expected, soaring to the top of sales charts for every platform, including ones that aren't out yet. The figures speak for themselves. Nearly 3 out of every 5 fans bought the game on Xbox 360. The PlayStation 4, which was not even available at the time, racked up 4%, while PC and Wii U combined added up to less than 1% of the game's total sales. If it seems like every single person on your Facebook friends list is playing Candy Crush Saga, you're not far wrong. 1 in 5 users of the social network have at least dabbled in the colour-matching casual game, racking up more than 150 billion individual games in just 18 months. Interestingly, most UK fans get their swapping fix in while they're on public transport, while their US counterparts play more when they're at home watching TV. Why we need to know this, I'm not sure. Chances are that you do, however, need to know about World of Warplanes, which has officially launched for PC. The game has enjoyed a super successful beta test, with more than 4.5 million gamers getting their hands on the free-to-play aviation-themed MMO. If you want to join in on all of this, you are invited to jump straight in. And remember, World of Warplanes now joins World of Tanks in the WorldGaming.net universe as part of the United Premium account system. If you hand over real-world money for either one, you will enjoy benefits in the other game as well. Back to the PS4 now though. While the console has launched in North America, we are still waiting until at least November 29th to get our hands on Sony's latest. Once we get there though, there are plenty of treats waiting. Beta access for Destiny will go live first on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. PlayStation gamers will receive an extra exclusive level for Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. Naughty Dog has confirmed that there is a new Uncharted game in the works exclusively for PS4. And while it's not necessarily going to land on PlayStation 4, there is also new DLC on the way for The Last of Us, putting Ellie quite firmly in the spotlight. Something that has no apparent intention of coming to PlayStation, however, is Minecraft, but never say never. The 2012 documentary on the game, Minecraft: The Story of Mojang, is now available to watch in full on YouTube. The 2-hour-long tribute has been available for a year or so, either as a physical DVD copy, digital premium edition, or via a torrent uploaded by the developer, but this is the first time you're able to watch it in your browser. As always, if this is something you like, please consider giving creators 2-Player Productions a little something for their time and energy. And finally this week, video game movie news. The Assassin's Creed movie has been delayed to August 2015 for no specific reason. We still don't know much about the film starring Michael Fassbender, but the delay will push it ever closer to the somewhat action-packed holiday season coming in a couple of years' time. But believe it or not, that's not the big movie news of this week. If I asked you to tell me the name of the story where an explorer has stolen a sacred idol from an ancient temple and is now being chased by an assortment of angry demonic forces, what would you tell me? Now, it's Temple Run, the blockbuster endless runner currently available for iOS, Android and Windows 8. And it's soon to be on the big screen if Warner Bros. Pictures has its way. No dates, no names, no story, but we're told this one is definitely happening. To keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com, but for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.
With the much-awaited Xbox One hitting shelves around the world this week, the most important decision for any gamer to make is what games to buy. We've done the research for you and rounded up the top 5 games that you should get your hands on as soon as possible. First up, Forza Motorsport 5, exclusive to the Xbox One. If racing games are your thing, then this realistic venture from Microsoft is the way to go. With the addition of open-wheel race cars to this next installment and a few extra tweaks, we think this game is going to be a must-have for Xbox One owners. The inclusion of the Bathurst track brings the circuit count up to 14, with hints that more may be released as a DLC after launch. You'll be racing with 200 cars from more than 50 manufacturers. This is actually less than you had in Forza 4, but developer Turn 10 promises that it's emphasising quality over quantity.
Hello? Anybody in here?
Another must-have exclusive, Zombie Hunter Dead Rising 3. Longtime fans of the series are understandably wary of this third offering, handled by the team at Capcom Vancouver. There's a new protagonist, Nick Ramos, replacing longtime hero Frank West, and a new setting which brings the game to California. But you shouldn't worry, the more some things change, the more they stay the same. With more than 3 times as many zombies on screen at any given time, you can still dress up and take selfies, still drive steamrollers through crowds of zombies, and still pick up just about anything and turn it into a weapon. It's not one for the faint of heart, this one is rated R after all, but if you're the sort of person who enjoys dispatching wave upon wave of the undead, Dead Rising 3 is for you.
Keep your eyes peeled. I don't think we're alone.
Destroy any highs on that nuke and haul ass back here.
Roger that. Sector 1 copy.
Call of Duty Ghosts is not an Xbox One exclusive, but its development has been closely tied to the new platform, and it's the console FPS we'd recommend. The highly anticipated shooter was released on Xbox 360, PS3, PC, and Wii U on November 5th, but it's something extra special on the Xbox One. Take advantage of the new generation multiplayer features, the glorious graphics, and explore the all-new storyline. We've got a full review later on in the show, but wanted to put your minds at ease. If you're the sort of person who's concerned about frame rates, relax. Yes, Ghost runs at 720p on the Xbox One and is upscaled to 1080p. The end result, believe it or not, is a super smooth experience without any noticeable drop in performance. Don't go thinking the Xbox One is a super serious console though. There are some games that are just for mucking around too, and our pick is the latest Just Dance from Ubisoft. The current gen versions have been around since early October, but if you haven't picked it up yet, it's worth waiting around for the new hardware.
We're up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to get lucky.
You don't need no papers. That man is not your maker. And that's why I'm gonna take a good girl.
For starters, the Xbox One is the only place you'll be able to get all your friends on the floor in 6-player dance crews. We're promised console-exclusive tracks, a Just Dance DJ mode, and the brand new Party Master mode, only available on next-gen consoles. The new Kinect 2.0 technology means the game is more sensitive than ever, so your Xbox won't miss you catching those tricky moves. But what really makes Just Dance 2014 the perfect party game is one new addition to the smash hit franchise, karaoke. And while we wanted to keep this to games you could grab right now, there is another Xbox One game that is too good to ignore, even if it won't be out until next March.
You said it would be tough to start over, but I didn't listen. You said more would follow. I thought they'd leave us alone. I was wrong.
Titanfall from Respawn Entertainment really does look like it could be the game that makes this console. It's been a while since we've had a good, quick, multiplayer arena shooter, and it looks like we're in for a treat with Titanfall. The storyline is simple. You're on a war-torn planet inhabited by both human pilots and giant robotic mechs called Titans. You play as both, jumping in and out of the pilot seat as required, and your task, to put simply, is to take out your opponents. Titanfall has already won Game of Show awards all over the world, with its mix of fast-paced action and giant mechs, and from what we've seen so far, the hype is worth it.
I'm gonna make them pay.
Microsoft's new console is out right now, with more than 20 games to choose from. If you didn't put down a pre-order for your own Xbox One, you might be left waiting. Demand for the new machine is at an all-time high. Don't stress though, and don't pay inflated prices on eBay. Microsoft is working hard in an effort to get consoles in houses by the end of the year.
It's been 10 years. You start to forget the things you should remember. And you can't stop remembering the things you should forget.
America, my friends, is under attack. A federation of South American nations has risen up against the United States, and predictably, it's up to you, Logan Walker, to stop them. This is Call of Duty Ghosts, the latest installment from Activision's giant, grumbling war machine. Love it or hate it, the Call of Duty franchise seems to have become as inevitable as death and taxes. The problem is, it shouldn't have. Ghosts is a good enough title to stand alone without the Call of Duty prefix. The game throws you into the ocean, behind the wheel of tanks and helicopters, and even into space as you struggle to overcome the South American menace. You fight in California, in a ruined San Diego, and the urban battlefield of Santa Monica. You also fight in some more exotic locations, but it's the scenes at home that hold the most impact. Back in the day, gamers bought Call of Duty games for the single-player elements, and Ghosts tries to reclaim some of that former glory, but the storyline struggles to be heard throughout the explosive cinematics and set pieces. It does get a little disjointed in parts, and with perspective-changing flashbacks and explanation-free cutscenes, I struggled to tell who I was playing as: Logan, his brother Hesh, his father Elias, or any of an assortment of other characters. But it was still enjoyable. When I could follow the story, it was impressive. The new, somewhat faceless enemy is a nice change from the Cold War era Russians and the somewhat more modern Middle Eastern terrorists, and those cinematics, cutscenes and shootouts were all pretty great. Everything is done on a massive scale, so be careful, it can get a little overwhelming. Happily though, in that regard, the single-player campaign is not terribly long, although by Call of Duty standards it is epic. And yes, it is linear, and yes, it is predictable, but chances are you're not buying this one for the single-player storyline, are you?
Just get this shit off you. You okay? What the?
Another thing the game gets mostly right is the graphics. They are pretty, but they do feel a little outdated. Despite Infinity Ward's constant promises that they've given us a new engine, this one still looks and feels like a slightly revamped version of the one we played in the last Modern Warfare. Plus, I have to mention there were a couple of painful bugs in one jungle level. Firstly, everybody disappeared, forcing me to restart the mission. Later on in the same level, the water flared and glowed with missing textures. It wasn't enough to break the game, but it was certainly enough to break my involvement with it. I mentioned before about driving. The inclusion of cars, tanks and other vehicles added a nice bit of variety, but they felt somehow dumbed down, like they'd been designed for people who didn't know how to drive. If you were in a tank, a turret pointed anywhere but forward, the tank would self-right itself to the direction the turret was facing as you drove off. Good if you don't know how tanks work. Not so good if you're trying to strafe or otherwise deliberately look somewhere other than straight ahead.
Hey, check it out. Never thought I'd see this again. Guess that means we should keep moving on.
And we can't talk about Call of Duty Ghost without mentioning Ryse. This German Shepherd, as much of a pre-launch joke as he was made out to be, really is the star of the show. We'd been warned that we would become emotionally attached to the dog, and yes, I did. The entire story was more emotional than I'd anticipated, actually, with some brotherly love between Logan and Hesh, and even more family bonding with Elias. But back to the dog. Ryse is one of the more effective and efficient recon tools I've seen to date, and second to none when it comes to quietly taking down enemies. Plus, I hate to say it, but I was often more concerned about his safety than Logan's. Some could call it returning the favour after he saved Logan's life a few times. While I maintain that this game does not need the Call of Duty tag to succeed, it does label it quite clearly for newcomers. Call of Duty Ghost is what it is. It's a chunk of big, dumb fun with some big guns and a big dog. If you're looking for something else, there are plenty of other games that you can check out, but sometimes all you want is some ridiculous firepower, enough of a storyline to get you from one point to the next, and an enemy that you can feel good about beating. And this is all without even looking at multiplayer.
Attention, lads! The brave man tastes death once. Cowards, 1,000 times over. And we have already spilled barbarian blood. And we know they bleed as we do. Ready! On me! Move!
So, Ryse, Son of Rome is a cinematic action-adventure game set in historical Rome. Of course, our own little fictional take on that. You play a character in the single-player campaign by the name of Marius Titus, whose father was a famous general in the Roman military, and he's kind of followed in his father's footsteps. And we take you on a part of his life journey from Rome to all the way to the deepest reaches of Britannia.
We must take out that tower!
Ryse actually has a history that dates all the way back to at least a good 6-7 years ago, to where we started development of that as more of an RPG into an MMO, and we announced this game called Kingdoms one year, and then the next year we came back and we announced another game called Ryse, this Connect title for the 360, and you know, it wasn't shortly after that that, you know, Microsoft was working on this new hardware, which is now behind me here, as known as the Xbox One. And we provided them with, you know, a series of different prototypes, from what you see here in a third party, what you see in what we had as a full-out Kinect title and an FPS, or at a first person. And in showing all these things, we basically went and we looked at them and we said, you know what, this feels the best. This is what we want to go with. We're Crytek. We're going to do something different. And, you know, that's what we ended up going with. Not to discredit the Kinect in any way. Definitely not. It's an extremely powerful unit. But, you know, it's just something that we felt didn't really fit in with the gameplay and where we were headed with it. We spent a lot of time doing FPS games and, you know, first-person shooters, from Far Cry to Crysis and those kinds of things. And, you know, we wanted to try something different. I mean, consoles are, and when you look at Crytek's overall history, the console generation is something that's very new to us. You know, starting with Crysis 2 and then moving on with Crysis 3. And, you know, now alongside a new generation of consoles, I think we've learned a lot from it. And when we look over the course of an entire generation of how long it's taken from, you know, the 6-7 years between the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, technology has changed so rapidly in that time, between, you know, how much Facebook has grown and, you know, the advent of smartphones and how much power we have in our pockets now, you know, to the next generation of consoles. So I mean, it's a monstrous change to bring something like this into the living room.
You men, form up on me now! Incoming! Shields!
Yes, we're great at FPS games, but, you know, at the same token, I mean, we need to try something different out of our comfort zone and you know, expand upon that. And I think that Ryse will do that. And I think moving forward into the future, that Crytek has a few more surprises up their sleeve.
And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week, it's time to launch another console. The PlayStation 4 hits shelves in Australia, New Zealand and Europe on November 29, and we're here to tell you everything you need to know about the hardware. We also get up close and personal with Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and chat to the team behind infamous Second Son, so if you're not sure which games to get, we've got all of the answers. In the meantime, you can catch us on playerattack.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. And if you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.